No one prepares you for the moment your service dog stops asking to work and starts asking for rest. Welcome to The Dog Who Asked for More, the podcast for dog parents navigating real life behavior struggles, reactivity, anxiety, and all of the hard parts no one prepares you for. Each week, you'll get training, enrichment, and nutrition strategies through honest, grounded conversations that help you understand your dog, support their needs, and build the bond you've always dreamed of. I'm Em, a dog trainer and canine nutritionist that works with overwhelmed dog parents who love their dogs deeply but feel stuck, burned out, or unsure what their dogs actually need. And today we're going to slow things down just a bit because this conversation holds three things that tend to show up together when life with working dogs starts to change. Like what might actually be going on beneath their behavior, why advice that sounds right often doesn't feel doable in real life, and what can change when you stop forcing answers and start noticing patterns. Caitlin, for someone listening who's quietly wondering whether their dog is still happy working, what was the first moment that really made you pause with Sebastian?
The first moment that I realized that things were kind of shifting with him was we were at a restaurant, which he worked for 3 years. We went to restaurants all the time. I could leave him tucked under a table. I went to go refill my drink. Waiters could come to the table and bring our food and everything, and he would not care. All of a sudden, whenever a waiter would come to the table, he would stand up. He looked super uncomfy, ears went pinned back. And as time progressed, he would start barking to let the waiter know that he was there. I literally went from a dog who was chill, loved working, could stay under a table to we moved, which I think was a big factor. And then after that, I just started noticing more and more things. Like he used to run towards his service dog vest. And I've had people tell me, like, hey, some dogs are gear shy. I'm like, right. But my dog used to see his vest, run to it, run to the door. Like you could see that excitement, almost like when you say, I'm not going to say because both my dogs are sleeping, but if you say WALK and you see that excitement in your dog, that was the excitement Sebastian used to get the second that he saw any of his gear come out. And all of a sudden, again, I was getting that ears pinned back, running away from it. And I was like, okay, obviously, like we need to reevaluate some things because there's been a shift in you. At the time, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but those were kind of my first indicators to say, like, hey, something's definitely going on.
Little bit about some more of the behavior or specific body language that didn't really feel dramatic or maybe kind of brushed it off, but ended up being really meaningful to your decision.
Yeah, one that I kind of brushed off was the ears pinned back, which if you're a dog trainer in the dog training world, the ears pinned back is a telltale sign that something's up. And so I kind of like checked that behavior and kept it in my back pocket. We were out in Seaside, Florida, which is close to where I live. It's a cute little beach town. We were walking around and I could see he was very head on the swivel, which he wasn't usually. And so part of me was like, oh, he's a German Shepherd. He's 3, turning 4 at the time, and sometimes that's when you see those kind of protective behaviors come out in German Shepherd, especially one that is not well bred. And Sebastian was a rescue turned service dog and now retired. But I knew from my dog training experience that there was a chance when he turns around that age that I was going to start seeing some behaviors come up. And so I started noticing that head on the swivel. And then there was a guy that came up to talk to us. And usually Sebastian would just kind of stay right next to me, didn't care about people, would sit while I talked, even smiled. Like he would have this gigantic smile on his face. I have pictures of it and it's so cute. And with this guy, he kind of backed up behind me, and his ears back. And the guy wasn't sketchy, but he wasn't like a guy that like I would be like, oh, hey, what's up? Like, let's be friends. And so I was like, okay, I'm not getting a great vibe either. I'm gonna again tuck that in my back pocket and just keep it noted. Maybe we need to work on some things, maybe something about his appearance, or we just need to work through meeting more people wearing hats because that was something I didn't think about until we moved to Florida because a lot of my friends didn't wear hats when we moved to Florida and everyone wears a hat here. So maybe that's something that we need to work on. Maybe there was something that lacked in the training that I didn't set him up for success for. So we're going to work on that. And so those were kind of the things that I noticed but wasn't fully committed to saying these are a problem yet at first.
Tell me about the moment when you realized that Sebastian was asking for something different and less coaching on his performance.
I feel like I probably noticed it and wrote it off for longer than I should have. And that's selfish because at the end of the day, like he was my service dog and I wanted it to work. I wanted to work through things. Probably January. So around this time last year was when I started having him evaluated by trainers. That was when the running away from the vest kind of started. And I think that was my like real indicator of, hey, obviously he's not having it with this. Started having him evaluated by trainers for anxiety because the barking at waiters was getting worse. I couldn't take him to non-pet friendly places because you could tell he was having a lot of anxiety. And we were at Target once, we were shopping for socks, and a guy came up to also look at the socks, which I mean, again, we had gone shopping plenty of times and I could feel the bark about to come. And so I quickly walked away and I was like, okay, like something is not right. So I started having him evaluated by trainers and we started working with different trainers to see what was causing this anxiety. He had been stepped on a lot while working just because I don't know where he got his size. He should not be as big as he is, being 95% German Shepherd, 5% Husky. I mean, you've seen him. He's a big dog.
He's a big guy.
And even when he tucks, like, there's always something that sticks out. And so he was getting stepped on way more than I would have preferred, no matter how much tucking I did. So we came to a conclusion, a couple other trainers and I, that that was what started it, was just the getting stepped on over and over again. And then you add that with poor genetics and you get a dog with anxiety who's over it. He doesn't want to be stepped on anymore. And I can't blame him. And then I made a poor decision on my part. And I'm going to own up to that here. And I've told other people I own this. He should not have been at Global Pet Expo last year. I had thought that we had worked through some things and I thought that he could handle it because he does love Global. And even if you look at the pictures and stuff, he was having fun for the most part. But the first booth that we walked up to, a guy that he had never met, I had never met, it was a brand I had never even heard of, got down on his knees, bear hugged Sebastian, got in his face, and it just kinda set him up for failure because and it happened so quick, I couldn't even process what was happening to say like, "Hey, please don't do that." But that kinda put him on edge for the rest of Global, and then when I got home from Global, it was a very hard time because I was talking to Sarah Carson, who I know you've had on this podcast, and her and I hung out all of Global, and we had a very big heart to heart on like, "Caitlin, it's time." I was already there, and then when Sarah called me and we had that talk, that was kind of the, "All right, we're ending it."
First of all, from Sebastian's point of view, I would not want to continually get stepped on. And people are not aware of dogs' tails. And that is such a sensitive area for them. And people just don't realize it. And second of all, it really kind of bums me out to know that there was somebody working a booth at Global that doesn't know that you shouldn't bear hug a dog, let alone a service dog. So, bummer there. But also, would you have really known that it was time if you hadn't taken him?
I think about that a lot. I think I probably would have prolonged it more, not even for my own gain. It was just I believe in him and I believe in our training and I believe in his resilience. And I think that I would have kept trying just to train and help him through it. But taking him to Global showed me that, hey, we're done. And then I was able to take the pressure off of trying to work for the potential to keep working as a service dog and just work to help him for pet dog life. And as soon as I made that switch, that's when actual change started happening to help him through it. And like now he comes pet friendly places with me all the time. I don't bring him to restaurants still. That's still a a touchy subject for him, but everywhere else, he's thriving again. I know that was the right decision, and I don't know that if I didn't take him to Global, I don't know that I would have pulled him in March of last year officially, so I don't know, but I know I get a lot of hate for taking him to Global, and
Well, I'm not going to give you hate. What I'm going to say is you may think that it might have been selfish because maybe it was. You wanted him there. You wanted one last really big hurrah with him and you wanted that time with him. But also, it gave you the answers that you needed and allowed you to give him the life changes that he was asking for. And like you said, if you hadn't taken him, it might have taken you 6 months longer. He might have gotten more reactive. There might be things that were not working out after you continued to work him because you didn't know. And now, instead of him thriving almost 9 months later, you might have still been in a really bad position or in a worse position because he continued to build up on those triggers and that trauma.
yeah, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the retirement part because that is a really, really, really tough decision to make. Can you talk a little bit about all of the emotions that came up for you when you made the decision? It's okay.
Emily,
I'm getting like teary eyed here too. It's okay.
basically, we left Global last year, and I got in the car and I said, "Mom, Sebastian's done working." That was a hard pill to swallow. It was a hard pill for her to swallow. She's like, "No, no, no. You can work through this. It's going to be fine." And I was like, "No, I've been working through this, and this is where we're at." And I think it's time to call it. We've been on this journey now for December to March. I had multiple trainers and we had talked and she's like, "Well, maybe you just need to sleep on it. Let's sleep on it. Don't make any rash decisions." Like Global was rough and he had good moments at Global. He did the Chrissy Joy show. Like he was good when he saw you. He had his good moments, but he also had some not so great moments. And so she's like, "I think you just need to sit on it." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna sit on it, but I'm telling you this is gonna be my decision." It was a 5 hour drive. We get home and by that time, Sarah had reached out and said, "Hey, we need to have a heart to heart." And I was like, "Yeah, I already know what you're going to tell me. I already know what this heart to heart is about. We'd already been talking about it before Global." And I remember getting off the phone with Sarah and just, I mean, losing it. I was bawling my eyes out. My mom and boyfriend didn't know what to do. I was like, "I'm going to lose my freedom. I'm not going to have a service dog. A lot of my freedom. I don't necessarily rely on my service dogs. And I do live a very active lifestyle, but I'm able to live that active lifestyle because I have their help." And so I had just started feeling kind of like I was getting some freedom back. And I just started with a new functional medicine person. So I was starting to make a turn for the better with my health. And that kind of sent my mental health spiraling, which a lot of my stuff is nervous system dysfunctions, and I was just throwing that off completely, and so I started fainting again and couldn't go to the grocery store without Alex. I couldn't go by myself because the grocery store lights are actually meant to stress you out. They higher the voltage in things so that you get hungry and stressed and you want to buy more. Well, the typical person doesn't notice that. Somebody with a central nervous system dysfunction notices it almost the second you walk in. I no longer had the service dog to help me get through those moments. And so I was having to wait for people to go with me. At that point in time, he couldn't even come pet friendly places. I had pulled him completely. He was an at home, sometimes going to the beach dog. And so mentally, that was and still is very taxing. And there was also part of me that didn't want to post on social media yet because I was comprehending and trying to allow myself that space. But people were noticing because I went from working all the time and posting him all the time to all of a sudden, like, kind of quiet, not really posting service dog stuff. He wasn't wearing gear anymore. And my followers are very loyal. I love them to death. They pay close attention. So they picked up almost immediately. And then I ended up getting Nalu a lot sooner than I was actually anticipating getting another dog. And so as soon as I signed the papers on her, I was like, okay, well, now I kind of have to talk about this because I can't just get another dog and not talk about any of this. And so that kind of forced my hand a little bit, probably sooner than I was ready, but I was very surprised with the outcome and the love that everyone poured into his story and just the encouragement that I got when I did make that post.
That's one of the pitfalls of being on social media is that people do notice things and they have opinions about them, but, like, you also have to continue showing your entire life because that's what you started the platform for. Yeah, it can be really difficult. We're going through something similar here in this house. We moved and there's another dog here, and now we're integrating dogs and trying to show that process when you have a dog that doesn't like another dog and a dog that's dog selective. It's hard, but it's also so helpful to people who might be going through something similar. So I think that you sharing this really difficult journey, it's going to help somebody. And I think that even if it just helps one person, knowing that, I hope fills your cup in a good way.
No, I've had so many conversations over the past few months of people who came to me and was like, "Hey, like the signs that you have explained and the things you saw in Sebastian made me realize like I was valid for thinking my service dog was done, or like you gave me the encouragement to go get a trainer to evaluate. These are some things I'm noticing in my dog. Like, do you think we can work through them?" Which it's it's cool to see people trust me to that level, but also sometimes it's overwhelming. So I'm like, wait, I don't want to inspire you to pull your dog, but also I do want to inspire you to not work a dog that doesn't want to work. But there's a line here.
There really is. So, what felt harder, accepting Sebastian's needs or letting go of the version of the life that you guys thought you were going to live?
I want to say the meeting his needs was not hard. or pulling him to meet his needs because at the end of the day, he's my best friend. What I was not prepared for was the people who thought I should automatically rehome him, which to me was never an option. That was never really on the table. The discussion was on the table when I did bring home Nolly just because we weren't quite sure where he was going to stand. But I had full confidence that I could introduce them properly and that they're going to be the best friends that they are now. And so there was an option that if things went awry and he did not like Nalu, that he would have gone to live with my mom and my dad. But there was never a conversation of, oh, I pulled him from service work. He's no longer working. I'm just going to rehome him. Like he's no longer my dog. That was never an option. And even with Nalu, when things got hard, which they were only hard because he's a 90-pound huge dog and she was at the time this little bean who was terrified of him. Like that was the only problem we ever really had was he was so interested and so wanted to play with her and she was terrified of him for a little bit.
Well, she was like the size of his head. So
She was smaller, yeah. She wasn't even the size. She was maybe the size of his snout, like tiny. That was the only issue I ever had, and it wasn't even like an issue. It was just, introducing them slowly. So I was ready to meet his needs. I wasn't ready for the conversation of people just thinking I should rehome him. In theory, should have had another 4 to 6 years working him. And then around the time that I would have, and I have a post sitting in my drafts that I haven't posted yet because I just haven't found the right words to put into the caption for it. But I should have been able to have a working dog bring in a puppy, work them kind of in tandem until I can phase him out and bring her in. I didn't get that chance. I had to cut cold turkey, give up a lot of things, bring in a puppy, now facing different disabilities again that I had managed because I had a service dog that are now popping up on top of having an 8-week-old puppy and losing that freedom. And then also having to cope with the fact that he's not working anymore, trying to still meet his needs and give him what he wants. But I'm also now taking this other dog out to be a service dog in training and going on these outings that like he should be there on and just trying to manage that. I think that's been the mental aspect of like, oh, well, he should be here. That's been, I think, the hardest part.
loud, name as many complicated feelings that showed up for you during this time as possible.
Anger, depressed, frustration, grieving, humility, failure, shame, also some joy, some happiness.
People often worry that retiring their service dog means that they failed them and they go through all of those emotions that you just named. How can you help the person listening shift their perspective to be a little bit more open minded about whether or not they should retire their dog?
The internet is a cruel place. I could have just said I retired him, I pulled him and left it at that. I chose to go more into it. And part of that is just I made my account because there was an account like mine at the time that I created it. I wanted to be authentic. I wanted to be a safe space for handlers. When I started, I thought that everybody was showing these perfect dogs. They weren't showing the actual training. Even when they were showing training sessions, the dog already knew what they were showing the training session of. They already knew how to roll over, but they were showing you how to teach rollover. They already knew the task, but they were showing you how to teach the task, which is great. We need people like that. But there wasn't anybody showing these real moments with a service dog. When it came time to retire him, there was only one creator talking about the real emotions behind retiring a service dog, and that's actually Sarah Carson, because her old service dog, Hawkeye, had a very similar story. He got stepped on a lot, had some reactivity, ended up having to pull him from service work. She was the one person in my life that understood exactly what I was going through and the only person talking about it. So I opened myself up to a bigger conversation that I don't know that I was ready for. I think that we need to honor the career that they did have. That was one thing that I really had to shift my mindset because there was an argument. I remember my comments over, well, your dog washed, he didn't retire, or the lingo behind it that the community has put on. These words are not made by the ADA. They're not made by any dog trainer legislation or whatever. These terms are made up by the community and defined by the community. To me personally, my dog didn't wash. He had 3 great years as a service dog that if he had not been stepped on and gotten the anxiety from being stepped on, I mean, sure, could have genetics caught up to us and he would have washed or he would have retired anyway? Sure. To me, if he hadn't been stepped on, he probably would have had another 4 or 5 years. And so to me, I pulled him and retired him early. He didn't wash. Like if Nalu were to fail out now at 8 months old, that would be what I call a washed service dog, not a retired service dog. And so I think coming up with your own definition, not letting the community define your story, not letting the community define your journey is a big mindset shift that we have to have. And just remember that it's your story. It's your dog. You know your dog best. And these people on the internet are only seeing 30-second clips at a time, a minute clips at a time. If you look at my global content from last year, you would never know that these feelings were happening if I didn't tell you. Emily saw me at Global. She only knew what was going on because when she gave me a hug, I said, "Oh my gosh, listen to all of this."
Mhm.
Like
You
it is
you were stressed.
very easy. I cried at Global last year. At the very end, before I went on Chrissy's show, I was in tears. It's very easy to put on a front online and say, like, hey, I have this perfect life and this perfect dog. And I think pulling him has also allowed me to pull back that curtain a little bit. And it really did bring out that authenticity that I looked for in other accounts. And I used to have when I first started training him, but there was part of me that I needed protection of myself and my peace.
Fitz is a washed service dog. He didn't make it past 8 or 9 months. That's when I started realizing he was dog selective. He was human selective. He was a great tasker at home and he could do all of the things. But the second we went out in public, it was just a nightmare. And it was really, really, really hard pill to swallow because it was like, okay, well, I have 2 dogs. I can't have more rules with housing and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't going to rehome either of my dogs. So I had to make a decision to move forward for however many years without a service dog. And that was a really, really difficult decision to make. Now, yes, he can still task at home and he can still do things, but it's not the same as having the service dog that I need to have for my migraines and for my blackouts and for my falls. It's scary. You were brave. You made a really, really tough decision. You made the best out of it. And now you have Nalu, who's just this crazy, good, little spirited, happy to work gal. And it couldn't have worked out any better for
It
you
really couldn't
guys.
have, and I was actually talking to my old boss, because I quit dog training towards the end of last year after Super Zoo to do content creation full time and allow myself to really focus on my health and my service dog and training. Sebastian's a great service dog, but I adopted him at 1 years old, and I'm already seeing I think she's gonna end up being a better service dog than he ever was. 1, I have more experience. 2, she started at 8 weeks old. So in a way, it's a blessing in disguise, and man, does he love the beach life and living a retired life. Like, he could not be happier playing fetch, doing tricks, like, just living his best life retired. So that's been a blessing. And was I supposed to get a dog in June? No, I was not. I was not supposed to get a dog in June. When I retired Sebastian, I'd already picked a breeder potentially for a trick dog production prospect to get in 2 to 3 years just for a fun dog. Like, it wasn't gonna be a service dog. I just wanted a fun dog. I'd already picked a breeder. A few days after I retired him, I reached out and I was like, "Hey, do you by any chance have service dogs in your line? Like, I really love you. People have recommended you. I really want a dog from you. I know we talked about getting one years from now." And she said, "Yeah, I do. Here are the sires and the dams that I would recommend." And I was like, "Cool, cool, cool." There was a set of puppies that would have been born in the fall and go home February, like a month from right now. That was the puppy that I was supposed to get. I was supposed to be getting a puppy in a month. I went out to lunch with another trainer friend and I said, "You know, I think it's good timing. It's going to give me almost a year to work with Sebastian and adjust to this new life." He didn't get to be phased out. He was just kind of ripped from service work. So it allows me that time and that space to really honor that. And I was like, "But there is part of me that, like, wishes I could get another puppy up and started." And literally the next day, my breeder was like, "Hey, so that pairing is actually not gonna happen because just life, and it would be irresponsible to have that litter. So you can either wait till next summer, or I have a litter of puppies on the ground right now. You can take it home June 5th." And I was like, "Oh," and somehow pulled it off and have Nalu now. It was a crazy first half of 2025.
But it worked out. And I'm sure you learned a lot of lessons. You guys pushed through a lot of challenges. With that in mind, tell me what was the most surprising thing about Sebastian after work was no longer part of what was on his plate.
The amount of joy I was seeing in other aspects of his life was very shocking, but also how much he loves going on car rides, which I knew, but because he was always going on car rides, I feel like I wasn't seeing the excitement of it. And now that he's not going literally everywhere with me, he gets so excited and just loves them and loves to stick his head out the window, which I mean, I have car kennels, but if we're only driving safe distance on back roads, he can have his head out the window, guys. It's okay. But he finds joy now in a lot of simple things that he used to find joy in, but like it's heightened now, I feel like.
It's funny how much can change when we take the pressure off of ourselves and our dogs, and how much more we can enjoy those small things. Because a car ride might seem like something that's really small, but if it's not part of your everyday thing that's maybe potentially bringing you stress, and now you know every time you get in the car it's going to be fun, I could see how that would be so much more joyful for him.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I want to pause for something that we call answering the ask. This is about the moment the behavior stopped being something to fix and started being about communication. Can you share a moment where Sebastian's behavior was an ask that you hadn't fully heard, and what shifted when you truly listened to him?
So, not trying to get into the force-free balance debate here,
It's all right. Go
but
for it.
we're gonna dive in on this one. When I pulled him from service work, I decided we're going completely back to basics, and I'm gonna treat you like a puppy, like you know nothing. You've never been taught sit, you've never been taught a task in your life, you've never been taught any of these tricks I've taught you, you've never been taught to walk on a leash. He was given to me on a prong collar. When I adopted him, his owner handed me him on a leash on a prong collar. He was already on tools. I conditioned him to an e-collar, and I kept him on the prong originally because I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and he was already 80 pounds when I adopted him and could very easily dislocate my shoulders. Pretty easy, and I wasn't a dog trainer, had no experience at the time, so he stayed on the prong. When I pulled him, I made the decision, which don't recommend this part, I pulled him off again cold turkey. So he got stripped from service work and got all his tools taken off very quickly. Not the right move. Should have phased the tools out a little more. Lesson learned. The barking at the restaurants, we would call that reactivity. Was it dangerous? No. Is he dangerous? No. But I was seeing a lot more of this anxious behavior, the licking of the lips, the ears pinned back, the head on the swivel, the not wanting people to come up to us, the over arousal when we saw other dogs, and some of these behaviors that I didn't ever see before. And so then it opened up this whole curtain of, wow, we have a lot more to work on than I realized. And I was working with other balance trainers because he was on tools at the time. So there was a lot more to this than I think I had realized, and that maybe even he had realized, and a lot more work than I thought it was going to take to get to where we are now. And I think that was kind of the like eye opener of, we needed to be pulled and we needed to have this heart to heart with each other. And we need to relearn trust because he was working for me and he was getting stepped on and I kept taking him out places. And I mean, that's to no fault of either of us, but we had to rebuild that trust. And even with Nalu, a lot of my friends will point out, even to this day, when we're at restaurants, I will keep my head on a swivel because I'm ready for somebody to step on her. I'm ready to try to move her out of the way. And when I went to pick her up, my friend has a German Shepherd service dog, and he was laying down at the table when we went out to eat, and somebody stepped over him and their foot landed right by his face. And I was like, oh my gosh, good job, good job. You're such a good boy. And she was like, Caitlin, that's what he's supposed to be doing. And I was like, right, you're absolutely correct. That is what your dog's supposed to be doing. But I have a little trauma from just what we've been experiencing. And so um, I think those are some moments where it was like, okay, I've been affected, you've been affected. We need to learn to recommunicate. We need to learn to rebuild this trust. We need to rebuild a value system. Maybe we're not using treats. We use a lot more toys in our training now than we were doing. We've been off tools for 6 months, going from using a prong and an e-collar every single day to only using an e-collar on the beach for recall because I'm just not louder than the Florida winds, and that's never going to happen. Um, it'll humble you very quickly on your handling, your communication, your relationship with your dog, and I definitely think that was a very big eye opener on things that we needed to work on as a team together, whether he was going to continue service work, which wasn't the plan, or just be a pet dog like he is. That was definitely the eye opener.
Love so much how obvious you made that the relationship and the training and the moving forward, how layered all of that is because having a relationship with a dog, training a dog, working with a dog, all of the things, it is very complex. And because of social media and online presence, people get this idea that dogs are just going to behave a certain way or know all of the rules or walk on a leash properly or whatever just because they see it all of the time. But it's really deep and it's really complex and it takes time and it takes communication. So I love that you really listened to him and that you took all of those things into account and you backpedaled your way. And now you know you would do it differently the next time. Hopefully, this will never happen again, but you don't know. It might happen again. So you are better prepared for the next time or to help somebody else who's stuck in the same place. So, for the person listening who might be standing right on the edge of making the same decision that you did, is unsure, overwhelmed, afraid of getting it wrong, what is the one thing you want them to notice about their service dog this week?
I would say trust that gut feeling, listen to your dog, and know that if you're going to pull them or you have pulled them, you did not fail your dog did not fail you. Pulling them from service work when they are showing you indications that they do not want to work anymore is the biggest act of love and respect that you can show that dog. And the internet will try to twist that. The people on social media, especially if you have a platform, are going to try to say that you failed. You did not fail. You loved your dog, you respected your dog, and you will both be better off at the end of the day for respecting that decision.
An amazing message, and it really does like hit you right in the heart. I'm getting all teary eyed again. Jeez. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for being here today. What would you like to leave the person listening with today?
If you want to follow us, I am still navigating having a dog that is no longer working that used to. I share all about his journey on my page, and I have an 8-month-old Australian Shepherd puppy who is currently training to take over, and she's doing a very great job. She's got her tasks almost down. So I've been sharing more of that and the beach life and just embracing life with two dogs and sharing that there is life beyond a diagnosis. And I think a lot of the chronically ill community and the disabled community gets stuck in this mindset of like, my life is over, I cannot do anything. And that was a big mindset shift that came almost around the time I started studying this too. Pull Sebastian, I had a big just life mindset shift in general. But my page's mission originally was to share owner training a service dog with zero experience when I got Sebastian. And it has shifted to trying to advocate for this community, but also show there is life beyond diagnosis. And so if you guys want to check that out, we are the Salty Sheps because I have a German Shepherd and an Australian Shepherd. So, and we live the beach and I have Pots. Pots, you have to have a lot of salt. So it's a kind of beachy, potsy name. But we would love to have you guys there. My DMs are always open. I probably answer them more than I should. But I'm available.
Definitely give the Salty Ships a follow. They also have a YouTube channel, so make sure you guys are checking out that long form content. Today, we talked about the moment a service dog stops asking for work and starts asking for rest, about how subtle changes carry big meaning, why retirement isn't failure, it's an act of love, and how listening deeply is sometimes the most powerful form of love and advocacy we can give our dogs. So be kind, spread joy, and remember, honoring your dog's limits is one of the greatest ways to say thank you. Thanks for listening to The Dog Who Asks for More. If feeding your dog feels stressful, confusing, or like you're constantly second-guessing yourself, you are not alone. I work with so many dog parents who feel stuck at mealtime, all worried that they're getting it wrong. That's why I created the Mini Bowl Blueprint, a free, simple guide with 3 realistic swaps that you can make right now to support digestion, reduce overwhelm, and bring more calm and confidence back into feeding. You'll find the link in the episode description. Go grab your copy and start making mealtime easier today. New episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll see you next time.